Hey y'all, happy Tuesday. Thank you to my patrons, supporters of this channel. Thank you so much. If you are new here, make sure you go ahead and hit the subscription button below. Hopefully everyone's early part of the week is off to a really great start. Happy Tuesday. And welcome to Hey Y'all Tuesday. Tonight we're going to be talking about some news that's kind of gone viral here over the last couple of days. Tonight I have Dev from Trenchwork Chronicles with me before he gives his spiel and where y'all can find him. Hey Jason Bay, hey King BJ. Make sure y'all let me know as you guys are coming into the room. And then Deb, I'll let you go ahead and let people know where they can find you and what you do.
Cool. My name is Devin. You can find me anywhere at Trenchwork Chronicles. If you Google it, I'm the only thing that comes up. I have a podcast on Blog Talk Radio. I have an Instagram page that gets pretty interesting. You can follow me on Twitter at your own risk. Yeah, that's really it. I commentate on politics. I do a lot of activism in any inner city that needs the work done in. Right now, I'm in Atlanta. I've worked everywhere that basically anyone's asked me to come work for them or with them. Other than that, that's really it. And I give my very unfiltered and raw take as objectively as I can. Sometimes it spark thought because a lot of people try to go with the trend of thinking, and I try to break people out of trends so they can think for themselves.
So, I'm realizing this topic that I brought you on for tonight, and hopefully, YouTube lets me make it and YouTube doesn't ban me, but that is yet to be seen. And so I guess we'll know here in a little bit. You guys just keep watching. But anyway, so tonight we are going to talk about Leah Thomas. Leah Thomas is the transgender swimmer who just recently won the 500-yard freestyle race in the NCAA swimming championship. And so obviously this story has gone viral for probably, obvious reasons. Okay. And like I said, I believe that Lia Thomas has come up over here before, maybe like a year ago or, longer, been kind of getting much buzz in the swimming world. And so tonight we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about what people are saying. We're going to talk about our thoughts. We're going to talk about some of the articles that are being written in what I believe to be in almost absurd ways. And also we're going to talk about, what this means, I guess like legally, the legal ramifications of it. A lot of people are bringing up Title IX and things like that were put in to basically protect women's education. And so we're going to go into all of that tonight, and make sure below in the comments, you guys are letting us know what you think as well. And so first of all, okay, let's start with the fact that, they don't want people to know that some people are, not okay with this. And when I say some people, of course, they're going to know in the social sphere that everybody is not going to be on board with this. But particularly, you had a swimmer that came out and basically left a statement talking about how this was unfair. And I'll go ahead and pull that up here so we can look a little bit at it. This was according to the New York Post. So NCAA swimmer wants rule change after missing out on finals to Lia Thomas. A Virginia Tech swimmer blasted. Now, I was going to blasted. Okay. Blasted the NCAA over its rule allowing transgender women to compete against biological women after she came up short in a championship qualifying race that was dominated by University of Pennsylvania transgender swimmer Leah Thomas. Rika Gairagi, I guess is how you said it, leveled the criticism in a post to her private Instagram account after missing the cut on Thursday to compete in the finals of 500 free at the NCAA championships. It doesn't promote our sport in a good way, and I think it is disrespectful against the biologically female swimmers who are competing in the NCAA. Rika said of the rule that has received considerable scrutiny since Thomas has smashed records in her first season competing at the collegiate level as a transgender woman. Okay, remember, this is her first season competing as a transgender woman. Rika also placed blame on Thomas for her failure to qualify. The Virginia Tech swimmer said she felt the last spot to get into the final was taken from her because of the NCAA's division to let someone who was not a biological female compete. Thomas finished with a 4.33.82 in the preliminaries and ultimately took home the National Women's 500 free title when she won the finals race with a time of 4.33.24. Rika's letter urged the college sports organization to amend its rules. I like to point out that I respect and fully stand with Leah Thomas. I am convinced that she is no different than me or any other D1 swimmer who has woken up at 5 a.m. her entire life for morning practice, wrote Rika. On the other hand, I would like to critique the NCAA rules that allow her to compete against us who are biologically women. So this goes on to talk about how she believed that 16th spot could have been her spot if Leah Thomas had not qualified. This is her picture here. And of course, both of them have faced backlash. Okay, some people are going to side with Leah Thomas, and then you're going to have other people that side with Rika. And so one thing that I find pretty interesting is that the stories like this are not going to nearly go as viral. People aren't going to nearly talk about this as much because I believe that there is a mainstream media agenda push and a narrative push when we obviously not only see something that is happening so quickly, okay? If you go against the grain, Twitter, YouTube, all of these other people are going to try to go out of their way to silence you, to censor you, and things like this. And they want to make it look like everybody's cool with this to a certain extent. Like, what do you think about that? Are you seeing the same things happen with, the discussion around this?
Yeah. It's business as usual with any of these type of stories or movements. It's the loudest people in the room are gonna get the camera or get the attention to derail the actual opinion of the masses. Like there have been, I think Caitlyn Jenner actually spoke out about this story as well. So this college student isn't the first person. But yeah, as always, when liberal media runs the mainstream media, they're going to run with their agendas and their storylines. So it doesn't surprise me that people like us have to cover it. But at the same time, I have seen, and I'm happy to see this as well, that more Black people are starting to speak out about this issue. And we're starting to now no longer allow this very, in my opinion, poisonous LGBTQ movement to leech onto the Black movement and use us as a vehicle or a Trojan horse to push their own agenda through. So, like I told you before we even jumped on, the first person I saw that was saying something about this was Lil Duval, and he was the one that posted Leah Thomas's record prior when she was still a man, and what her record or her ranking as a man as opposed to her ranking as a female. I thought that was hilarious. I know he has a huge Black following, so I know a lot of people are opening their eyes to see what's actually going on. Lil Boosie, one of my favorite voices out here. He's one. Hey, if we're being honest, Lil Boosie is really one of the best Black conservatives on the planet right now.
Oh, please. Oh, give me a break.
And
please.
he went in, and I mean, people are just waking up, and I'm happy to see, people speaking up about issues like this. It needs to be spoken up about. Like, there's no world where we thought we'd get this far to where an obvious male is competing in women. Like, do you not remember Joanna Man growing up? Like,
so I'm trying to remember the movie, right? Like, I don't even remember. I guess I was like a kid when that movie came out, so I don't remember. I kind of remember like the theme of the movie, but now I'm super, super interested to go back and just watch it. And I gotta go back and watch it so I can know exactly and compare it to what's going on now. But I know for some reason, like, didn't his publicist or somebody that was close to him talk him into, like, disguising himself and being in the WNBA or something like that?
Yes, basically it was a dude who had a bad rep in the NBA. He got suspended or kicked out of the league. So he literally just changed into a female, tried out for a team, and was the best thing. I think he led his team to a championship and was killing it. It was ridiculous. Like, and this is literally what we're seeing now. It's just swimming instead. But this is a problem in America, specifically with conservatives. Conservatives get on this like honeymoon phase where they don't like to combat agendas that have been constantly at it for years and years and years. Like, this isn't really new. This is just almost a new climax of where this agenda has been coming from for so many years. Like, I don't understand how any conservative that has played sports who had any type of pull in the NCAA allowed this to happen. Like the swimmer said, the NCAA is at fault more than anybody because you are allowing this. You know what I'm saying? You're tolerating this. Until the body changes, it's like, hey, but what are we going to do?
So first of all, I want to address this whole Boosie thing, because Boosie is not anybody to look up to fawn over, none of that, okay? Now, I brought up Boosie on this channel. I've talked about some of the things that Boosie has said. I believe in these regards have been correct. But we need to address this, because I'm not about to sit here and act like Boosie is like some type of hero. What I do think is that in a lot of ways, Boosie's from the South, Boosie's from Louisiana, Boosie is from like the kind of like the older hip hop culture, you know what I'm saying? So, it's a certain mentality that's going to come with that. And what I can appreciate about Boosie is that in a time where people are making it more and more hard to like speak out, stand up for yourself, a lot of people, like you said, you now seeing more Black people, I guess, start to speak out about this. I've always found it odd how Black people, the type of white people that they have allowed to bully them in this regard, I think it's so freaking weird. Like, if you could see the people that's coming after me, sending me death threats and all this stuff because of like the Jubilee episode that I was on, and I'm thinking like,
oh, I'd laugh. I would have did a YouTube video and laughed about it.
Like, I'm looking at them and I'm like, bruh, like, you look like you got thrown in a trash can in school. Like, just for real, so people can kind of get an idea of what I'm talking about. And I'm like, these the people that got y'all scared to say a man is a man and a woman is a woman, like, for real. And that's not to belittle bullying, you know what I mean? That's not exactly what I'm trying to say. But the fact of the matter is, the people that pretending like they care about bullying have almost turned into the bullying. And for me to care, I would have to care about you as a person or what you think. So I don't really care. I can get on a platform and say what I think because I'm not beholden to certainly not them people. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not beholden to you. I don't speak for you. I don't want to have nothing to do with you, to be quite honest. When we're talking about, it's a little different, but some of these same people are the same people that are like, yeah, I think we should talk to these grown-up conversations with like 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds, and it's like, we don't have anything in common. I don't want to be your friend. I don't care about you liking me. I don't give a crap. So I don't have anything to prove to you, and I'm certainly not going to let you bully me. So yes, I am glad to finally see more people, more Black people standing up. People also have to remember that majority of Black people are from the South. Like, let's just keep it real. Most of us were raised in the Bible Belt. Most of us had that granny that was gonna get on that tail if you was talking back, if you was doing anything you wasn't supposed to do. You was raised to have a certain level of respect and decorum and all these things. So I've always found it weird that when you have, when you think about the people in the BLMs, when you think about some of the people that get the most shine in politics, these people are from New York. These people are from California. And California has like a 6%, a 6%, 6% of the Black population in 6% of the population in California is Black. And, you have that kind of dwindling, right? As you have the middle income really being impacted by the COVID lockdowns and just the politics generally in California, okay? California is super high to live in and stuff like that. But if you look at like a Mississippi, where I'm from, you have 30%, possibly even more. I think at least minimum 30% of the population there is Black, right? You look at some of these other places, Louisiana, Texas, where you have these higher Black populations. I think that's more so true when you want to see the actual values and the belief systems and the stuff like that of Black people. So first of all, I wanted to address that, but it's unfortunate that you'll have this young lady that speaks out and says, well, I don't really think this was fair. And some people are saying, well, y'all got to stand up. You need to stand up to the NCAA. You need to boycott. And on one hand, it's always easy for people to be talking about what other people should be doing. And these people are never doing it. Like, I'm so sick and tired of you should be doing this, you should be doing that. And the people saying this don't do anything. These people get to sit like people trying to tell me what I should and shouldn't talk about. What do you ever talk about? You know what I mean? It's like people always trying to make other people the martyr. And people have to understand that to combat anything and to stand up for anything, it's going to take droves of people, not just one people here, not just people here. People are finally just now starting to come up and stand up for people like Kyrie Irving that said, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not down with that. And you always have these people, the Kanye West, the Kyrie Irvings, the whoever, that have to be the first ones to step out and be willing to take these bullets. You know what I mean? Be willing to take the hit. And then it's like, oh, now the other people want to strag along. Now that it's like more cool, it's more acceptable. You know what I mean? We can look at it as it relates to recently, if we want to talk about COVID. I mean, any of these things. And it's like, people have to understand it's going to take way more people. Even we talk about, the school systems and what's happening in the schools. How many of these people have worked in schools? How many of these people are willing to, even if you don't agree what's going on in the schools, to homeschool your children? Like, you're not taking a stand. You're not doing anything. You're not supporting the people that do. Some of these people are not showing up to the parent-teacher conferences and this and that. They're just quiet and letting these people doing what they want. And then we look up and it's like, how has all of this been allowed to happen? And so people say DC and Maryland also have a high black percentage. That's true.
Yeah, they're still on the East Coast though, which is pretty much the North. Like, I'm from that area, so that's basically the North. But to add on to what you were saying about the schools, I've been saying it for this past year, specifically because I work in a school now, is that people screaming about college campuses. A lot of the problem is actually in the elementary school, and also normally you don't really hear anybody go any further than school choice. Like, what exactly does that mean? You have school choice. You have private schools, like you already said, you have home schools, and the new way, everybody always likes to resort back to the old, like, awkward, weird way of kids turning out after being homeschooled. But nowadays, like with technology and how people are literally grouping together and just homeschooling as a group, you don't have to really worry about your kid being awkward. And honestly, all kids after these lockdowns over the past 2 years, they're all awkward right now. All of them are socially fucked up. So it's not even like,
that is stupid. That is stupid. That whole awkward thing is the same thing as calling people conspiracy theorists. The whole
right.
Anytime you go against the system, you're going to be shamed. If you don't go with the mainstream media narrative, if you don't go with the mainstream media narrative, you're a conspiracy theorist. If you decide to homeschool your kids are going to be awkward. If it's a woman that wants to stay at home and raise her family, you're a bum. You're not adding anything, even though you're literally adding to your family and your children. If you're a woman that decides that you don't want to have your baby in the hospital system, you want to do it at home, you're going to be shamed. Oh, you're putting your baby at risk. You're putting your life at risk. The doctors know better than you as something that women have been doing for literally eons, right? Your freaking grandma have 10, 13 freaking children right in the backyard or right at home, right in the bathtub, but you'll be shamed. That's just another shaming tactic. I hate this. Are some of those kids going to come out awkward? Yes, because their freaking parents are awkward. You also know I very much went to public school with tons of awkward children, right? So that's not gonna.
It's not an excuse. It's not an excuse to be a lazy parent. And add to what you're saying.
Are we saying children that talking about sexuality, masturbation, and then got the nerve to be learning from your teacher at 5 and 6 years old? Are we really saying this is not awkward? And somebody gonna come in my comments. This was like 2 weeks ago. I want to know where this is part of the curriculum where teachers are doing this. You can go all over freaking TikTok and teachers boldly and proudly are showing you videos of them coming out to their students, talking to their students about sexuality, talking to their students about gender theory. Not only that, I covered this, has to be like a year or 2 years ago at this point, where Los Angeles was literally including it in their curriculum.
To add to that, for the dude that said he was from Maryland or talking about Maryland, DC, and Virginia, I'm from that area. I went to a board meeting for a school district that literally was adding penguins on bathroom doors so they could start pushing the narrative of gender neutral bathrooms for transgender kids. So like this isn't a game. This isn't like a hot topic that you're only going to see on certain news outlets. Like, this is a real thing, and it's starting at a very young age. So unless you want to have to do a whole bunch of reverse engineering on your child, pull them out and start being a parent. Like, that's the biggest issue that I see, whether your kid's in school or out of school and they turn out awkward, is that you're a lazy parent.
It's so funny to me. It's so funny to me that the main people that be like so against the system, right? Like, you so down for the people, you F the government, you this, you that. And in a moment, people come up with like solutions to defy that. Then that's when the shaming tactics come. That's when the excuses come. That's when all the problems come. That's when some guy that I was we were going back and forth, on Twitter a couple of days ago, he said something. It was the original tweet said something about, you know, he specifically said my kids would either be in private schools or home schools because I don't want my kids going to school with y'all kids. And so I got under their comments and is like, you giving a white man your money is not going to solve the problems of the Black community. I'm like, y'all brain is so limited that the first thing, nothing about white people was said, and that's the first thing your mind goes to. Like literally, like you couldn't even help yourself. And I'm like, what does this tweet have anything to do with what you said? You like, y'all don't literally realize that there are Black private schools, there are Black charter schools, there are Black homeschool co-ops, but we've been so conditioned to whatever the people on the TV tell us. Like what's the show where the lady had the blindfold on?
Say that again.
What's the show where the lady had the blindfold on and she was like in the boat? Sandra Bullock, I think.
Oh, it was a movie.
I can't think of the movie.
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about. I think it might have been The Happening.
But it's like we are so blind to the other possibilities and opportunities. You know what I mean? I look at people like King Randall and I see the things that he is doing at such a young age that are very inspirational. And we want to make sure that like we are supporting people like that. You know what I mean? Bird Box.
Yes, that's what it was. Bird Box.
It's like it reminds me of that Kanye West clip where he be like, if you only been told you can't do something, you're gonna think you can't do it. But like, I've never been told I couldn't do it, so I know I can do it. It's just always like excuse-based.
It's a defeatist mentality. It's a defeatist mentality that Black people have adopted based off of, honestly, the push of intersectionality on Black people by way of critical race theory. If anyone actually has studied critical race theory, all it is intersectionality. All intersectionality is a way to, I guess, psychologically categorize people based off of their environmental upbringing. So if you're a gay, Black, trans girl, you are top of the list for needing all the reparations in the world. You can't do shit because you are the most oppressed person in the fucking world. And at that point, it's like, all right, so at what point, and this is where I had to really break free in my thinking, especially when it came to politics. And this was at this point almost 10, 12 years ago. But it was like, at what point do we start fighting back? And that's when I really started digging into like Malcolm X and people who weren't just giving me a soft, feel-good story about Black history. And when I started reading and understanding that a lot of these Black leaders like Kwame Ture, people like Robert F. Williams, people that actually took up arms to defend Black people and were about being self-sustained, that's when I really realized, like, all right, that's where Black people really should be about. We don't really need all of these aids and band-aids and all of this help because it's never worked. And even in a microcosm, if you look at any type of federal funded program, they always maintain their customer. Just like how many Black people have diabetes right now. They've never actually told Black people, hey, you know, you can diet and get yourself off of diabetes. No, they're just going to pump insulin to maintain their bottom line customer, which is Black people. So people want to start being self-sustained and accountable. That's when we'll start to see a lot of this stuff change. Black people set the trend for everything in America.
So going back to the guy that I was talking to on Twitter, that was like, you know, giving more money, giving more of your money or the tax dollars, you know, going to white people is not going to help. And I'm like, so are you saying that a person who is capable of offering their child better, affording better opportunities, better education, they should have to suffer, because we all know something's awry. We all know the system is not working. We all know something is broken. Okay. And so therefore, you're literally basically saying this child should have to suffer for some fake solidarity. It's literally not working, right? You take, I believe this was Baltimore, if I'm not mistaken, and I tweeted it exactly. But I believe it's Baltimore. Gets about $19,000 per student. Per student a year. $19,000. Fifth highest ranking for payouts for education. Yet last year, when they looked at the averages for the students, most of the students, over 50% of the students, had a D average. What the heck is happening here? And why are we not talking about this? This doesn't go viral. Nobody gives a crap, but everybody gives a crap about the Don't Say Gay bill. These freaking white liberals are destroying. They are destroying. They are co-opting. They are standing in front of us. If I had to do a poll, and you went to mothers in these inner cities and you asked them the 5 top concerns for them and their freaking children, okay, some of the main things they're going to mention are safety, things like reading, math, making sure that their child is like a productive citizen and can get a job after leaving these schools.
Yeah.
And every single time I talk about this, you have teachers in my freaking inbox. Thank you. You wouldn't believe what I'm hearing in these schools. You wouldn't believe what's going on in these schools. And what we don't want to do is lose good teachers, because I know some of these teachers' hearts are like really in it. You know what I mean? But unfortunately, again, when you're dealing with and in a system, you become a part of that system. And if you don't have large numbers of people willing to stand up to this, make their voices heard, and make things known, and when you continue to have a silent majority, people scared to stand up, people scared to speak out, people, you got this, like I said, this NCAA swimmer speaking out, and some people don't like that. And you don't have these swaths of other people joining in with her. You know what I mean? And so we have to look at the real-time conditions of what is going on in front of our faces in our communities. I'm so tired of these narratives being handed to us. Oh, this is what you care about today. This is what's important to your community. You know what I mean? And I'm not, I want to be very clear. Do we have students and children that are dealing with gender issues, identity issues? Absolutely. We're going to have that. And I think you've had that in the past. I'm sure you had that when you and I were in grade school. You know what I mean? But as far as it being a number one educational issue, I think we're being led in the wrong direction.
This dude in the comments has said Black public schools are near exclusively run by Black people and have been underperforming for the longest, yet no one calls for any accountability. Actually, that's not necessarily true. I work for one of the biggest charter school chains, or work with. I don't want to say work with. And the entire board is white. It's all white liberals. Everybody who makes decisions about where the money goes, how the environment is going to be, all white. So no, that's not necessarily true. It's literally, like you said, a bunch of information and tactics handed down to Black people, telling us this is how you have to teach. This is how the environment has to be. And honestly, it's exactly what we've been talking about. It's a white savior complex utopia. It's literally everything that they want to validate feelings instead of actually setting realistic goals for these kids and making them accomplish them. It's all about making them feel comfortable. And even if you can take race out of it, you're never going to be comfortable if you want to be successful in the real world. You're always going to be striving for something else, which is going to make you uncomfortable because you're always going to be going to the next level, going to do something. So making these kids feel comfortable in this environment, no, like they need to be challenged. They need to be pushed. They need exactly what they're not getting at home, which is structure. And if we don't give them structure and proper guidance, we're going to have, like, I really do look at the next generation. I'm like seriously worried. Like, it's going to look really bad in America in the next 30 years. And we're still going to be here for that.
So I want to address this comment about the Black schools being run by Black people. So first of all, one of the things is sometimes, now I can't really speak for like Baltimore and some of these other areas, but you know, you do have, well, in majority Black areas. Let me be clear about this, because I believe the demographics maybe look a little different if you are in, like, you know, a New York, California, Baltimore, something like that. Yes, you do have some areas that have a lot of Black teachers, principals, people working there. But when you go to some of these downtown offices, they don't necessarily look the same. And not only just that, I think it's deeper than that. I am of the belief that there is some type of money laundering going on.
100%.
Because I have family, friends, colleagues that work in these school systems, and what is being afforded to the children and what they are seeing, it's like something's not adding up. Something's not clicking. I don't understand why when some of these schools you walk into, you know, they look old, the textbooks are old, you know, they're having to struggle to get supplies for the students. It's like, I'm not sure where the disconnect where the disconnect is happening. But I would love to be able to see like some of the budgets of what exactly this money is going to.
Yeah.
Because when I have so many teachers saying, like, we have to ration out stuff. You know, we have some of our students who are like may not be able to afford things. We try to help them out. My aunt is a teacher, has done so much out of her own pockets. You have a lot of teachers that do things out of their own pockets. And so I could 100% believe that the same things we see going on in other parts of the government, where it's like, where the heck is our taxpayer dollar going? Where is this money going? The constant rivers and seas of money that we're putting into the military, that we're putting into the highways and the roads, and you still have potholes. It's like, overall, anything that deals with the government, it's just never up to a high par or a high standard.
Ever.
Maybe unless you want to say maybe the military, you know.
No, we can do better with private security.
You know, but other than that, when you're looking at specifically programs for the public, like the general public, like your school system, or, you know, when you think of like the VA hospitals, how our veterans are treated and things like that, they'll put all the money into the front end of the military, and then, you know, our veterans after that are treated horribly. You have all this money. When you look at California, I mean, they spend thousands per homeless person, but yet there's a perpetual homeless problem. And so honestly, I believe we're being robbed blind. We're being robbed blind.
Yeah. Hold on. This dude keeps talking about PG County in Maryland. Okay. Let me just kill this real quick. So some of the worst areas that he's trying to talk about, the worst areas as far as graduation rates for Black kids is Indianapolis, Cleveland, Detroit, Milwaukee, Baltimore, Atlanta, Los Angeles, Las Vegas, and Columbus. Not all of those are black places. So, and PG County is probably, I think it is the richest Black county in America, majority Black county in America. They got a lot of smart Black people coming out of there. Specifically, that is the new basketball hub for collegiate athletes. So that area is going to graduate a lot of kids. Their schools aren't that bad, especially because you're in the backyard of the government. Everybody in the government works or lives in PG County or Arlington County or a little bit further out, maybe 30, 40 minutes outside of the city. But that's where all the rich Black people live. Our friend Rel lives in Baltimore. Makes a lot of money. So yeah, Baltimore's a corrupt city. They have a lot of leadership issues everywhere. Like they have probably the most, other than New York City, have the most corrupt police in America. But nah, like they have 1,005 different gifted and talented schools. I know Oxon Hill was one. My cousin went to Frederick Douglass High School. That school is really nice. Like, no. But anyways, Black people, I mean, yeah. I anything politically, I always revert back to anything that Malcolm X had to say about it, because he basically had it all worked out for Black people politically. And you got to stop trusting white liberals, period. Like, sorry, white liberals, but y'all can't help us. Y'all have to go fight your agendas on your own. Stop trying to use us. And Black people have to stop allowing it to happen. Until
so as we're talking about that, this is a perfect segue into this. So this was a NBC. Let me see. So this was an NBC article. So an opinion article, NBC News. So originally the name of the article was "We should be celebrating Lia Thomas like we did Jackie Robinson." Okay. So that was the name of the original article, the original name of the article. They got so much backlash that they ended up changing it to "Leah Thomas NCAA championship performance gives women's sports a crucial opportunity." So on Saturday, University of Penn swimmer Lia Thomas placed in the 100-yard freestyle swim during the NCAA championship, ending her career in collegiate swim. This just goes on to talk about this. So basically what they say is women's sports are situated at a paradoxical intersection wherein sex segregation is upheld through claims of biological difference, yet equality is prefaced on being treated the same and given the same opportunities as men. If we are to change this, we need to ask some important questions. How does one advocate for equitable treatment while also adhering to the notion of biological difference? If separate is not equal in the case of schools, bathrooms, restaurants, or other social institutions, can separate ever truly be equal in a case of sports? Would gender-based discriminations in sports be eradicated if sports were gender integrated? The NCAA approved its first policy on the inclusion of trans athletes in collegiate athletics in 2011. The policy allowed trans female student athletes to compete on a women's team if they had been treated with testosterone suppression medication for at least 1 year. The most recent update in January aligns with the changes to the policies of the United States Olympic and Paralympic Committee and the International Olympic Committee, which place the responsibility for eligibility criteria on the individual sport and its governing bodies. So this just goes on to say those who oppose the inclusion of trans women in women's sports argue that trans women have an unfair competitive advantage and that as a result, they will take away opportunities from cisgender athletes. According to, or you could literally just say biological women, because that's like been a term forever. According to the NCAA, these assumptions are not well founded. Moreover, there is lack of scientific evidence that conclusively demonstrates a direct link between testosterone and athletic performance. Yet part of your rule says that this person has to have a deficit of testosterone. So athletic performance is influenced by a number of factors, including hormones, but also other things like coaching and training, psychological makeup of an athlete, access to resources and equipment, among others. Attempts to ban or limit the participation of trans athletes are not based on science. Instead, they are rooted in societal and cultural definitions of what constitutes gender or what defines a woman. Such questions matter because sports are organized based on a belief of natural differences between men and women, and they are sex segregated as a result. Yes, this ultimately leads to the discrimination of athletes like Thomas. The Supreme Court unanimously decided in Brown versus Board of Education that separate is not equal, and segregation violated the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. Despite this, sports have been able to operate under a separate but equal framework of held in part by the notion of biological difference between the sexes. The presumed physical inferiority of girls and women historically has justified, legitimated, and excused the unequal treatment of female athletes. The most recent example was the U.S. Soccer Federation's legal arguments regarding the unequal pay between the men's and women's teams. The Federation claimed there were differences in speed and strength of the men's and women's teams, which partly explained in disparities to pay. That was just a stupid reason, so I wouldn't have even said that. So yeah, the backlash was swift, leading to then president of the Federation, Carlos, issuing a public apology. So,
very simple.
It's some interesting points being made here. I'll let you say what you think first, because my take may be in somewhat.
Very simple question. Where is the Leah Thomas counterpart? Where is the woman that's gone to a man that's going into men's sports that's thriving? Because if we don't see that, what they're saying is complete BS. Until I see that, I'm not listening to it, because we obviously know that there's a physical, biological difference between a man and a woman, specifically in bone structure and in muscle tone and muscle mass. So it's like, stop the bullshit. You know what I mean? Like, this is crazy. It's like what Humble Servant 20 said. The fact that they're trying to figure this out is crazy. A man is a man. You can look at the picture of Lia Thomas compared to everybody who she's standing next to and clearly tell that is a grown-ass dude. Like, we just have to stop playing their games at some point. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is nonsense. We're living in Halloween Town.
So there are some trans men athletes who have, won like at certain sports and titles. I don't think any maybe as noteworthy as Lia Thomas. We also have to remember two things. One being that we live in a time where trans women get way more recognition and spotlight than trans men. That's just, that's just what it is. And even in that regard, I would say there's a little bit of privilege there with that. Also, I think this is also a part of a natural. You don't agree with that?
No. I'm looking at one of the comments is, why can't we have a third sports option like how we have special sports? Hey, I mean, Why not? Let y'all go compete against yourselves. Y'all got to worry about locker rooms, nothing. But I'm saying, but yeah, go ahead. My bad. I want to get to the Jackie Robinson comparison too.
The second thing is, I think that a lot of backlash you're seeing is once again this innate thing for people to want to protect women, you know, for people to want to shield women, especially men who feel like, you know, more like have more traditional views that, you know, feel like, okay, let me speak up for women, let me, you know, protect women, especially from guys that you kind of gotta watch this guy. I don't know what this is about. I don't know why he's doing this, that type of thing. So I think that's big reason why we're seeing what we're seeing about Lia Thomas. Now,
hold on. This dude just said soccer is one of the sports that could be genderless. All right. Put a male soccer team up against a female soccer team. See how that works.
I think didn't that already happen?
And I don't think it worked out very well.
Was it a soccer team or a basketball team?
There's a reason why you'll see like varsity soccer teams scrimmaging against like the freshman boys team. Like they're looking for a way to even out the physical balance. Like stop that shit. Like no, if you have that take, you must not have played sports in high school because there's
another thing. That's another thing. I feel like a lot of people, not counting the people on the team, because obviously people, you know, you're gonna have people that don't want backlash. You're gonna have people that want to say the politically correct thing. But a lot of people that I think just generally, you know, taking up for Leah Thomas is like, have you ever played sports? You know what I mean? Like I played sports in school, and yeah, I'm gonna just say good thing I was on a girls team because I wasn't, you know, particularly just that great. I was more so doing it like for the fun of it.
Show me the WNBA dunk contest. There isn't one. There isn't one. There was hype.
Okay, so somebody told me if you took the worst roster, like the people that rank the lowest on the NBA, that they could beat the best players from the WNBA. They would run circles around them. Do you agree with that? Do y'all agree with that in the chat?
The word, yes. Oh my. Do you understand men grow to like 7 foot tall? The tallest woman. All right, here you go. The girl who's stuck in Russia right now, Brittany Griner, tallest WNBA player, I think, until this new chick came out that's like 7 foot now, right? She's 6'9". LeBron James is 6'9". Jason Tatum is 6'10". Kevin Durant is almost 7 foot. Giannis Antetokounmpo is a fucking truck running down the court at 7'3". Put any woman in front of him and see how that works out. Like, that's disrespectful to women. Like, stop. Equal does not have to mean identical. And we have to stop trying to make it identical. Like, no, let women be special in their own ways. Stop trying to make everything brolic and manly. Like, I don't even like that shit.
Okay, but that is so that's what we have to, but that's what we have to address, because when you start to make these things a federal issue, okay, because you have people like Caitlyn Jenner that come out and they say, Caitlyn Jenner says we need federal legislation protecting women's sports. But now, if you're going to say that, now we have to look at the word equal under the law, under federal legislation, and what equal actually means. Because maybe this is what we asked for. Maybe this is what we voted for in a way. So I was like, you know, I don't think this is a federal issue. I think you should let people handle this internally. I think the state should handle this. I don't see how this is a federal issue. So people brought in Title IX, obviously. So let me just catch people up to what Title IX is. Title IX is a federal civil rights law in the United States of America that was passed as a part of the Education Amendments of 1972. It prohibits sex-based discrimination in any school or education program that receives funding from the federal government. The early legislative draft was offered by Representative Patsy Mink, blah, blah, blah. The purpose of Title IX of the Educational Amendments of 1972 was to update the Title IX of the Civil Rights, Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Do they still teach Roman numbers in school? Anyway, which banned several forms of discrimination in employment, but did not address or mention discrimination in education. Contrary to popular belief, the creation of Title IX had nothing to do with sports. Women's sports were not considered a relevant issue within educational organizations at that time. This is the text. No person in the United States shall based on sex, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any education program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. Now, let me ask you this, Dev. If that athletic woman is having to compete against that trans woman and the trans woman wins, is that not equality? Because technically, if we're looking under the law and saying that people are equal and we don't discriminate based on biological differences, and you're not being denied the chance to compete, you just lost.
Well,
because I'm going to be honest. I'm biased. I think women are beautiful. I think women should be more valued. I think women should be more protected. I want women to have certain benefits socially. I do. I'm a woman. I want you to open my door for me. I want you to pay for dates. I want to be able to keep my nails clean, okay? You take the trash out, you cut the lawn. That's me. So I can actually be honest in saying that socially I want those benefits while being equally protected under the law, because if I want to go work and get this job and me and him are doing the same job, I want to be paid the same way. I want to be protected the same way. But I absolutely want some social and traditional benefits of being a woman. And so now when we start to blur those lines, if we're going to look at this from a legislative standpoint, how can you account for biological differences while also using the word equal? That goes against what the word means. And so we're now starting to blur the lines, and people are going to have to really think about what because this is what I'm saying. Maybe this will help me kind of bring this point home. If you're going to now say that, well, you can't compete, in some ways, legally, you would be codifying that women, you're not quite that equal, because you wouldn't be competing equally. You are, in fact, separate based on biological differences.
Wow. There's a lot of good comments right now. They let trans women in weightlifting.
Yes.
They got grown ass men in weightlifting against women. Okay. Wow. I have a question. Is there any turning back? If there is, how do we get back to like common like logic and people who think rationally and with like, I feel like we're a country like dictated by the theater club right now. Like when do we get back on track, or how do we get back on track?
we have to decide how we're going to deal with this. Are you going to deal with this as a federal legislative issue? Or are you going to deal with this socially and handle it in the schools and handle it in the NCAA? Because that's two different things. And going about it federally, I don't think people, especially when, you know, you have some of these, you know, more like liberal, progressive, you know, politicians and judges, you know, and Supreme Court justices. You may not have the outcome that you thought you were going to have. You know what I mean? Especially when we're looking at what the word equal actually means, how even as, you know, dealing with equality, it was supposed to be so we wouldn't look at those, oh, you were born disabled, oh, you were born a woman, oh, you were born black or white, or you were born, you know, whatever those other differences are. And so
this is like affirmative action.
So that's literally the first thing that we would have to decide. How are you going to deal with this? And me being the anti-status that I am, cheap plug, get your anti-status tea at RhondaMary.com in the link below. I just don't think going about it federally is the right way to do that, especially when the languaging, I don't see how you could get around it federally on paper without saying, you would almost have to say women are the weaker sex, and for this reason we want women. You know what I mean?
But it's being honest. It's physically weaker. Like, how many men say that they want their women to be their peace when they get home? That means emotionally you're a lot stronger than us.
That's socially. All men don't believe that. All men don't believe that. And this is where this gets tricky. When you try to do this, you try to, politics is downstream from culture, you know? And are we going to start writing legislation? Is it based on feelings? Is it based on social norms? Is it based on reality? Is it based on biological differences? Like,
it needs to be objective truth.
I feel like those are the things, you know, that have to be asked. Because I don't see how a court could look at this, you know, any differently. I absolutely believe and see the biological differences with my own eyes. And I would hope that women, you know, biological women could absolutely have a space where they feel like they can flourish. They feel like they can, you know, win scholarships, they can be competitive and things like that. But I feel like in some ways we've gone so far. And if you don't start reeling it back and having more people stand up in a social sphere and saying, hey, y'all may be doing that over there, but we're not doing that over here.
Well, do you think that we've done that and it didn't work? Because I remember for the longest time, the sentiment about anything with the Rainbow Rage mob was, as long as y'all are cool over there doing it, y'all aren't, you know, forcing that over here, it's cool. Now we're essentially demonized if we don't basically concede to their way of thinking and their ideology. Like, absolutely. We have to call, like, I would have to literally call you a cis female. And it's like, nah, like, you're a female. That's what it's been called from day one. A woman, for real.
I've talked about this, how, I mean, your head almost swims when you think about the fact of how we literally went from, you know, we just want to love who we want to love, to, if you don't think that a man is a woman and a woman is a man, you're transphobic. If you don't want us teaching sexual and gender theory to your grade school children, you're homophobic, you're transphobic. You literally have an author who, a member of the LGBT community, who was recently, they were nominated for an award. They lost their nomination because they stood up for another author who wrote a book, a dystopian novel. This is like not real. And it's basically like, what would the world be like if everybody with the XY chromosome just disappeared? Oh, that's transphobic. And the lesbian person that took up for the author, like, this is a book. Like this, like, we write from our imagination. They took their nomination. You have people of the LGBT community. You have literally, I saw this gay guy on Twitter talking about how he is now being bullied, being called transphobic for only wanting to date like men. Like what? Like what? It's not real. This is like an unreal reality. And I'm gonna always support people making their, particularly adults, making their individual decisions. I feel like you have one life to live, and I can't answer for it. I can't account for it. You know what I mean? You have to do that. However, do not try to push your language and your ideology on me. That's where I draw the line in the sand. That's where it becomes a problem for me. And also, and I've talked about this over here before. One of my most favorite students, was actually a part of the LGBT community. He wanted to be trans when he left. He would tell me he wanted to be trans when he left school. This was well known around school. Because he was very, he wasn't hidden about it or anything. And he was not one of my favorite students because of his freaking sexuality. He was one of my favorite students because of his wit, his humor, his intelligence, and all these other things that made him a great human outside of his sexuality and his thoughts about his gender and all these other things, but amongst my talks with him, it was very clear. It was very clear that he had internalized these issues with his father, because he would talk to me about these things, right? Mm-hmm. And he had internalized these issues with his father. He had believed his father to almost be like a not a misogynist is not the word I'm looking for, but it's the man that's like always running around with like different women, just not, it's a particular word that the
womanizer?
A womanizer. He particularly believed his father to be a womanizer, and his dad would give all these women, just these different women would always be getting his dad attention, but his children would not get the same level of attention, right? Like,
wow.
After these discussions, it's obvious to me that you are internalizing and dealing with and harboring issues with your dad and how your dad views and handles women. How me, as someone working in the schools, as someone working with students, as someone that has loved my work that I've done with students, how would it make me look to ignore that? How would it make me look to ignore the fact that Detransitioner Day, which was, I think, like maybe a week or two ago at this point.
It was.
Detransitioner Day, where you have all of these people that were trans talking about why they detransition, the things that they dealt with. You had people literally talking about how they would go in and talk to a doctor twice and boom, we putting you on hormone therapy, right? For me to ignore the things that we've seen Big Pharma do and to now pretend like, oh, well, a doctor would never do that. A doctor would never prescribe children these lifelong treatments and therapies that are a freaking money bag.
Yep.
What's
that gonna do? That's gonna keep them coming back to that same therapist every year, over and over again.
And the doctors that are prescribing these hormone therapies and things like this, and these surgeries and all these other things. And now, with all of that said, Do you have trans people that feel like that was the right decision, that was the best decision for them? Absolutely so. I have trans supporters that watch my content and support the things that I talk about. You know what I mean? And so I'm not going to take away from that. But what I've always said, whether we're talking about any rights for women, even when it comes to abortion, I'm tired of these skewed stories. We have to offer, like I no longer see that student. Like I said, he was a male that wanted to be female. He told me, when he get older, he was going to do the procedures and things like this. But my hope for him is that you would have somebody that medically and psychologically could say, these are your options, these are your pros, these are your cons, these are the things that you are willing to deal with, and you need to make sure that when you make that decision that you are completely sure. You know what I mean? A lot of these detransitioners that were talking about this on Twitter were talking about how they weren't told the cons, the negatives, the side effects, right? And I recently talked about this when I did a segment about the lady that worked at Planned Parenthood. I've had so many women that have confided in me saying after my abortion, I had PTSD. I still think about it. I still feel some type of way. I'm still hard on myself and feeling like there's no space to have these conversations, because the moment you speak out, you're anti-abortion. You're anti-woman. The moment a person tells their detransition story, you're anti-trans. You're homophobic. You're anti-LGBT. And until we can have these nuanced conversations, it's gonna always be problematic. It's gonna always be imbalanced. And until more people are willing to step up and speak out and show up at the NCAA's door, and show up to your freaking parent-teacher conference, and show up to the city council, and be willing to even discuss and talk about these things, you're going to continue to get the outcome that you're getting.
I agree. A lot of people just have to get used to people not liking them. One, the rainbow rage mob, they have to stop seeking acceptance. If this is the lifestyle you've chosen to live, go live your lifestyle. On the opposite side, stop being afraid to speak out against something that clearly goes against your sound logic, your common sense. Like, you're literally being gaslighted to think that you are somewhat wrong for calling a woman and a man a man. That has to stop. You know what I mean? Like, be an adult. It's okay. Not everybody's going to like you. Say what you need to say. Like, it doesn't even have to be disrespectful. It's just a matter of fact. And that's it, too. Argue from facts. Like, I saw the dudes in the comments saying, I only like natural women. To me, the only women are natural women. So, yeah, I don't know, man. Until we can get out of our own way, it's gonna be ugly.
And you mentioned this point earlier. You mentioned this point earlier about not using, going back to this whole Jackie Robinson thing, right?
Oh yeah.
Not using Black people as the litmus test or some type of shield of struggle. The epitome of struggle, the epitome of oppression, making this the oppression Olympics. I've always said it's stop tacking the struggle of immigrants onto the civil rights movement. Stop tacking the struggles of the LGBT movement onto the civil rights movement. People need to be able to stand on their own too, and stand up for what they believe in and protect what they believe in, without trying to attack it to Black issues, it's very, very offensive. It's extremely offensive.
I ask them all the time, show me the black plantation, show me the anything, show me the black slave or the gay plantation, show me the gay slave ships. Like, nah, bro. Like, we're not doing that. I cannot stand when I hear somebody say, well, you should understand being a black person about gay people being oppressed. No, I don't. It was never the same. It's never going to be the same. I can't disguise being black. You can disguise being gay and walk out of a bar. It's not the same. It never will be the same.
And just think about the lynchings. Think about, you have people like Jackie Robinson that were spit on, that were harassed, that received death threats. You know what I mean? And the level, do we have stuff that still happens in this country that is unfortunate? Do we still have levels of racism? Do we have people just being beat up strictly or picked on for their sexuality? I would say sure, absolutely. But the levels of violence, right? The levels of having to carry, that torch to even have certain things happen in this country, it's no freaking comparison. It's no comparison. It's no comparison. I don't think Jews should be compared to Black people. I don't think everybody has their own unique history, their own unique struggle, timeline, all of these things. And so I think it's just a slap in the face. And I also think it's interesting that nobody ever gets compared to the Jews like that. Nobody.
You're not allowed to.
You're not allowed to.
Real quick. Jews will get you up out of here. You saw Nick Cannon, what happened to Nick Cannon. You better get your ass in line, boy. We ain't playing with you. Yeah, Viacom sat his ass down.
It's offensive. And it kind of almost belittles the history of these things. And somebody like Jackie Robinson, and I have my own thoughts. I kind of struggle around the whole some of those concepts. You know what I mean? And I've been somewhat open and forthcoming about how some of those things happen, the timeline of some of those things. As far as integration, in some areas, has it helped, hurt, pros, cons, and things like that? Even if we look at sports today, you recently had a sports figure just came out. I can't remember who this was. Y'all let me know in the chat. He did a podcast and was saying how you don't have enough like Black ownership of the leagues, the sports leagues, the NBAs. We talked about schools earlier. You may have some of these Black teachers working in the schools, but when we're talking about who's dishing the money, who's making an agenda, that's not what, it's not Black people. And so has that really like benefited? It almost moved the power like dynamic to the top in certain ways. And so that's for another show. But I would never disrespect the things that those people went through at that time, because to go through that level of like abuse, humiliation, like all of these other things, it's just racism. It's just not okay. It's just not okay. And I cannot fathom, nor can I pretend like I was in their shoes to make those same decisions. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, these were people that wanted to be treated fairly and treated just. Besides how you may feel about the methods and the this and the that, you know what I mean? Most of us are dealing with nearly half you know, and they crossed a lot of barriers for us to be able to do some of the things that we can't even do now. So that's to be respected. But the level of disrespect, and then for it to be, you know, obviously a white person wrote the article, and I mean, and so, you know, people weren't happy about that. People not like feeling that. And I've always said this. I've always said, if you want sympathy, if you want to push something socially, if you want to push it politically, put a black face on it. Tell them, oh, this is what the woe is me black people need. And you have all these people buy in, right? They're totally down with it.
Immediately.
You just throw a black person's face on it. And it's like, you know, and sometimes talking to us in real life, it's like, who said that? So,
oh, okay. No, I agree with you.
Sorry for the super chat. Thank you. He said good discussion.
Always. Y'all share the discussions when we're on the phone. Way better. We drop names and everything. But nah, yeah, man. I pray for anybody who has kids. Now more than ever, you're gonna have to be as involved as any generation's parents were involved in their kids.
Do you think that that's like every generation is just gonna say that? Do you think that?
I think ours is different. I think ours is different because of how technology is expediting the decay and the destruction of civilization. Like, we are so more narcissistic and self-centered now more than ever, and men are weaker and weaker. It's getting to a point where that everything that was happening, we're really starting to see the results of it. Like, that's why I'm afraid to see the results of these COVID lockdowns 10, 20 years down the line. Like, these kids are messed up. And it's different from, I don't think any other generations really had to deal with an influx of information, criticism, just opinions, and always being in a glass bubble, essentially, that they can turn off. Like, you choose to. So I think it's different. I think it's definitely different. I think everybody should go watch the documentary, The Fall of Modern Civilization. It's a very, very insightful documentary. It's not completely black-pilled, so it doesn't necessarily talk about like how we're going downhill now. It does, but it.
You swear you so black-pilled.
I'm not. That's what I'm saying. Like, this one, it's very, very objective. It just shows how we got to this and how other civilizations crashed as well. Every government fails, and ours is no different. Even every white person's favorite black conservative, Thomas Sowell, says that every government has its own self-interest, so we have to make sure we minimize how much control it has, or it will only operate in its self-interest. And essentially, that's what we see now. We just saw that bipartisan bill for the congressional members get a raise in the middle of a pandemic, quote unquote, in the middle of quote unquote inflation. They all got raises. Everybody got a raise across the board.
And the fact that we like not on the steps of the Capitol about that. You made a really good point about this generation being like more self-centered. I think it's so odd when we live at a time where somebody that literally could be across the globe is like screaming, like Twitter fingering at you because you don't accept my identity. And it's like, it's created this weird dynamic where we want to be accepted by people that we don't know, that has nothing to do with us, that has no immediate real influence on our lives, on our everydays. And I continue to ask myself, what are people longing for? what are people missing that you care so much?
Identity.
It's so odd to me. I do not give a crap what some random person thinks about my hair, my nails, my skin tone, my whatever. Like I just don't care. I don't my accent, any physical feature or whatever. I just generally don't care. And I keep asking myself what is missing. Do people not have friends in real life? Do they not have families that love them? I saw somebody tweet a couple of days ago that, like, when some people get offline, like, they really, like, for real don't have people to talk to. And I'm like, is that like a thing? Is that an issue that people are currently struggling with? I don't
Oh
know.
yeah. Yeah, for sure, for sure. And honestly, you see that sometimes when you see some of these people who have large platforms and how they can only operate in that realm of I am this character from social media. They never really like stop the character. You know what I mean? Like it never turns off. They never put that character in the closet. And yeah, it's sad because you can tell everybody is operating based off of if so and so approves of me. And it was crazy because I would say in our generation, the cool thing was to go against the grain, not be
Right.
accepted by the
Right.
masses. Now everything is about being accepted by the masses. Um,
You remember back when people used to be like, be yourself,
yeah,
do your own thing. Like,
right.
when's the last time you heard that?
Um, I don't know, but this is how I explain it to my kids at the school. I tell them you caring about people's opinions on social media is like you caring about a movie character's opinion. Like if that movie character was to tell you if you were cool or not, like you'll never meet this person. All you're ever going to see of them is on a screen, and it's going to be words that they're typing to get a reaction out of you. No one's ever really going to sit there and be poking at you in support. You know what I mean? If somebody's going to support you, they're going to really support you. They're going to leave a uplifting comment or something like that. But like to sit there and care about, like I don't even have that big of a following. I got like 4,500 followers on Instagram. I don't know most of them. I don't give a damn what they think. Like I actively will post stuff to purge people off of my platform so I can make sure like whoever's here is here for the real smoke. You know what I mean? Like if I post something that's pro black, I got to make sure that I go back and post something that is critical or that is critical of black people right now because I want it to be balanced. You know what I mean? I don't want an echo chamber ever. And that's another thing that social media has created. Echo chambers. Algorithms are a big thing. Like that's literally designed to create an echo chamber. But the fact that nobody wants to even be bothered with someone else's opinion or someone else's perspective is ridiculous. And to me, that's how you learn and grow. Like I love the art of debate. I love getting into heated conversations. I want to hear everybody's perspective. I will shut up and let somebody rant, especially if I know you're wrong. That way I can just chop it up. But I want to hear like what you're going to say fully and why you think like that. Because you can't dismantle anything until you understand the thought process that's behind it. And yeah, until we want to actually understand the issue and acknowledge the issue of the decay and the destruction of the nuclear family and the laziness of parenting and the lack of focus on our next generation is why we're looking at the issues that we're looking at today. Every issue that we've talked about has been an issue where we have literally handed over a responsibility to the government and the government has fucked it up. Everything that we've talked about tonight. And to me, again, it might be biased, it might be my only perspective because I work with kids, but they're the focus. You know what I mean? They're the focus of the opposition as well. So until we understand that the kids are under attack, then hey, we're gonna be spinning wheels. We're gonna be walking in circles.
Well, y'all heard that? So, as we wrap up, do you want to tell people where they can find you?
Instagram, Trenchwork Chronicles. Twitter, Trenchwork Chronicles. I think my tag is backwards. It's at work_trench. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, Trenchwork Chronicles. Shout out to Black Packers and Coda. I think he's on Instagram as Coda Chromes, but he is throwing a all women's firearms training this weekend at South River Gun Club. So go to his Instagram page and ladies sign up for that because I'm pretty sure it's free. I think all you have to do is cover your range fee, but everything else is gold. But yeah,
South Rivers Gun Club is in or right outside of Atlanta, by the way.
Yeah, right outside of Atlanta.
In a chat wonder. So yeah, we always support the ladies, of course, getting armed. Make sure if you're not following me on Instagram, go ahead over on Instagram, Rhonda_Mary, and give me a follow there. Also on Twitter, I am RhondaMary because you know I got booted off there once, and so you know they wouldn't give me my original name back. And if this is your first time here, please give a thumbs up and make sure you are subscribed. I think this is a really interesting conversation, and I think I'm probably going to try to have someone, maybe a lawyer. I have had a couple of lawyers reach out, maybe saying they can come on a show to talk about how we may be looking at this, trans sportsmen competing going forward, especially if we're looking, to do this in a legal aspect. Because I think this is going to be interesting, and y'all kind of hear my perspective socially and legally. That may not always combine or look like we may think, and so I don't know. I think some very interesting points were brought up here tonight.
Hey, real quick, did we talk about? I don't think we talked about it, but the NCAA versus Smith, that was a case where they basically ruled that because the NCAA, well, even though the NCAA is taking money from institutions that are funded by the government, they are not necessarily taking money from the government. So the Title IX thing might not necessarily apply to trans people because the NCAA isn't necessarily taking money from the government. So that's a good thing too. I just wanted to add that.
Okay, that's an interesting point. But all right, y'all. So thank y'all for joining us on Hey Y'all Tuesdays. Thank you for everyone that super chatted. Thank you to my patrons for always supporting my content. And we will see you next Tuesday. Bye.